What is going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Pickin Corners. What's today's date? I don't know. You know how they say that people really they don't have to know grammar as well anymore because the phone just fixes everything for them. Like, you were scolded when you were in school if you relied on, well, you're not always going to have Microsoft Word. Turns out all those teachers were 1000% wrong. You do have Microsoft Word. You have a whole hell of a lot better than Microsoft Word, but it doesn't mean they're actually long in the long run, because that's what it should be called, the wrong run. Because in the long run, you're just meeting complete imbeciles, imbecile after imbecile after imbecile. Like, am I really going to go? Maybe I'll save that for a different podcast, but it's a couple days. All right, well, let's do some math. Speaking of imbeciles, if Valentine's Day was on the 14th, then today is got to be the 16th, and we're going to be talking about games on the 17th. Happy February 16th. I don't know. That's all I have to say on that front. A couple more weeks, and you think you're going to be out of the winter, but you're not. Oh, no. Are you one of those people who thinks, oh, yeah, March, spring? No, it's not. It's snowing on opening day at Yankee Stadium. It's not going to be warm until probably May 26th. I think the first warm weekend nowadays is Memorial Day weekend. But I know you guys don't care about any of that. As always, as the week goes on, I have a couple things to bring up, a couple things that you guys maybe either brought up on the Patreon or something that came up in a game where I was like, oh, I thought they knew that. I guess they don't. So maybe I should talk about it a little bit. So the first thing I'm going to talk about, this is a Friday night. And last Friday night, there were only 2 games, and they weren't as drastic as we're seeing on this Friday night where we have Carolina going to Arizona. It's not that crazy. Like, when it opened, I saw it at minus 190. But last Friday night, it was the Rangers going to play the Blackhawks, and it was the Oilers going to play the Anaheim Ducks. And somebody on the Patreon was saying, oh, it's a great night to take those favorites minus 1.5. And I asked them why. Like, why would you think that? And they just gave me, the classic regular guy. Well, Edmonton's been holding people down, and they play the Ducks after a loss. Naturally, that's going to be a beating. And then the Rangers going to play the Blackhawks, where I tried to say, don't do that. It's the worst night to take those guys, take those types of teams at minus 1.5. And what I'll say to you, I mentioned on the video earlier today, every single team has their number of mail-ins that they give you, throughout every year. And when you look at those mail-ins, do you think they happen against division rivals? Do you think they happen against the cream of the crop in the league? No. They more than likely tend to happen against the lesser teams, the bottom dwellers. They can't get it up, okay? It's, these teams that they're like a girl. They don't really excite you, but you try to force your way through it. Sorry, ladies. I'm sure there's a female equivalent of that. I don't know. Maybe you go on a date with a guy and you see, oh, my God, he probably, man, what does he only make $40,000 a year? Oh, my God, can I bring myself to do it? Whatever it may be, when you have these random mail-ins, they tend to be against the worst teams. And the funny thing is, I'm not even telling you guys not to take favorites on Fridays when they're playing poor teams or something like that. But any game like those 2 that I mentioned, and you have a team like the Rangers or the Blackhawks, or I'm sorry, the Rangers or the Oilers playing the Blackhawks and Anaheim, do yourself a favor and just don't take them before the game. I'm not even telling you not to take them at minus 1.5. What I would do is say, take them at some point throughout the game when the opportunity presents itself. Now, if you tell me, well, what if the Rangers come out gunning and they're up 3-0? Yes, in that scenario, you are correct. Your only chance was to do that. But from my experience and my purview, that if you're going to have a team like the Blackhawks or Anaheim, and they're facing a team who they want to knock off, they want to spoil, when are you getting the best effort out of those teams? When are those teams likely to really push the hardest? Right at the top, at home, on their home ice in the first period. And in both of those games, Blackhawks went up immediately. Anaheim went up in the first period. You want to take those teams at minus 1.5? Go ahead, do it then. That opportunity will present itself throughout the course of that game. So to me, taking a puck line on a massive favorite beforehand when they're playing one of these bottom dwellers on that team's home ice, I think taking puck lines is silly. Is silly, especially in these isolated spots. Now, on a game where there are multiple nights, I feel like you guys aren't even going to pick that for the most part. You're going to find one that tickles your fancy a little bit more. But we know how it is. Like tonight, everybody's going to be betting on this Carolina-Arizona game. 3 nights ago, if this was when there were other games on, you probably are, all right, maybe I don't know. Maybe I don't know. But now you're going to force picks for this game, which I understand it's what people are going to do. But if you see these massive favorites going on the road to play a team who they may be likely to mail in some of that performance, rather than take the puck line, wait. The puck line opportunity will present itself. It presented itself in both of them. Both of those teams after, well, in the Rangers, after the very first shift, they were down 1-0. And then in Edmonton's case, I mean, Edmonton was down multiple times. And going back to what I was saying, why the puck line's a bad play to begin with, those were both somewhat of a mail-in performance. Like they really were. You had Edmonton have to come back on 3 separate occasions. And if you say, yeah, well, you know, they cleared the puck line. Yes, but you would have got it at an absurd price because of the correct aforementioned mail-in game. Then before that, the Rangers, they didn't end up clearing the puck line. But regardless, I think if you're going to take those massive favorites on the road in these isolation spots on a Friday night when everyone's watching this game or two, then you take the puck line at some point throughout the game. And then that's going to lead me to my second part of this whole conversation. And that is you can also take the empty net with about 4 minutes left in the game or something like that. Or you can take the puck line. Like, let's say Carolina's up 3-2 in the third tonight. You can take that puck line live if you, A, think they're just going to score, or B, you're going to have that empty net opportunity. And that goes to the second part that I was actually going to talk about, because another thing that came up on the Patreon, people scared to take unders because of empty netters. That should never be such a thing. Any single bet that you are correct on, or it looks like you're going to be correct on, whether you have a lead in the third and you had that team on the money line, or you have an under 6.5 and the score is 3-2, there's not a single thing that you can't hedge with the appropriate bets. So on the Patreon, they were starting to get worried about double empty netters. Oh, I've seen too many double empty netters. How many double empty netters in the last 4 weeks have ended a 6.5 over under? The thing is, people have recency bias. If it gets done to them once, and I talked about this, where that's it, this team's dead to me. But what about the last 9 teams that you were also dead to you? No, that's it. I'm down to 20, and then you're down to 5. Okay, we're down to 2 teams. You can bet 2 teams the rest of the way. You can't have that recency bias and just blanket, put it on everything. Look at all the empty net situations last night. How many times were there 2 empty net goals that cleared the over? Yeah, you could say there were 2 in that Avalanche game. That game was already way over. But anyway, let's say the score is, let's go, I don't know, 3-2, and you're scared of 2 empty netters. Well, you can do 2 separate things. A, you can hedge with the plus money over 7.5, because if you think there's going to be 2, or the over 6.5. If it's 3-2, you can take the over 6.5, or you can take the minus, and this is how you truly hedge them at massive plus money. You think there's going to be 2 empty netters for that team? You take the minus 2.5 on the team. So you have Carolina tonight. You're up 3-2 in the third. You're scared of 2 empty netters killing your under 6.5. Then you take Carolina minus 2.5 when they're only up 1. You're looking at like plus 300 or something like that. Probably more than that. It all depends on the team. Same type of thing with empty netters in general. If you know that, for example, the Florida Panthers, they pull their goalie down 1, hands down every single time with 3 minutes left in the third period. So if they have a down by 1, they're pulling their goalie with 3 minutes. I look at that as an opportunity. If they're down by 1 with like 8 minutes left in the third, I'm going to take a worse team by minus 1.5, because you really just have to survive a few minutes, and then you're going to have 3 full minutes to nail an empty netter. when you look at the percent chance of getting an empty netter versus the other team scoring on an empty netter, I think it serves you in the long run, especially when you're taking underdog teams and you have a pretty big price. It was that way with the Sharks. I was paying attention in the third period, but then they scored a bunch early. But if you took like the Sharks when they were up 1 in the third, if you took them at -1.5, it was like +2 something, let alone 2.5, you're looking at +400. You can use those puck lines against teams who pull the goalie early, and you could also use it to hedge your unders and overs. I'm not telling you it's as easy as the Microsoft Word squiggly line right click and you should know, but you can hedge anything and everything live if you just know what to do, and it's not that crazy. I just assume this stuff comes natural to people. Like if you're placing bets on a consistent basis, kind of just makes me wonder, like, what do you think as things are going on? Do you just sit there and go, let's see what happens, and not thinking how you can guarantee yourself earnings throughout the course of the night? Anyway, I do know that, yes, the more you involve other parlays, it's not worth it to hedge it when you still need 3 more legs on your 50-leg parlay. So I do know and understand that. And speaking of those guys, I got a little segment here for the Pirates. I got tips for the Pirates. Well, on DraftKings, I'm sure you guys have seen this, they offer the stepped up same game parlay. And hopefully nobody's watching this video, and hopefully nobody actually alters any of this, because what I've realized is you don't have to choose 10 teams correct. You don't have to choose 10 different results to get that 100% boost. And I don't know if it's available, but if you use the same game parlays where you have affiliated point props, this is literally 2 games. So last night, for example, if you chose Lindholm for a point, Pedersen for a point, JT Miller for a point, Quid Hughes for a point, that's 4 legs of a 10-game parlay complete. So that's 4. That could be 2 goals in the Vancouver game. Same type of thing with Edmonton. If you would have added McDavid, 1.5, Hyman, Nugent Hopkins, Bouchard, you're now, or the over in that game, that's 9. So in my opinion, you've taken 3 picks, because if McDavid's getting the over 1.5, that's going to knock off some of those other ones. So you can use their 100% boost and it will double your payout. And you can use these affiliated same game parlays, like the one I gave tonight, Svechnikov for a point with Aho for a point. That would knock out 2 of the 10 legs, but it's really 1 goal that does it. You know what I'm saying? It's 100% boost based on 10 legs, but I'm actually secretly removing that to like 4 legs. So it's the 4-leg 100% boost for all you parlay pirates. When you see the 100% stepped up parlay boost on DraftKings, do the best you can to isolate like 2 ruckus games, max 3, and just do those player point props. Do the McDavid 1.5, Nugent Hopkins, Hyman, and you find guys like that, whether it's, Kreider, Fox. How about that game last night? Kreider, Fox, Zibanejad, Panarin, Trocheck, all of them registered points. So you pick the right game where they're scoring. That's half your 100% same game parlay netted for you right there. So those are the weekly lessons. I don't know how we always stumble into this. So just as a quick review, number 1, if there's a massive favorite going into a team's building on these 1 or 2 game slate, these Wednesday nights, these Friday nights, where like the country's a national game, it's a TNT game, or if you're in Canada, I don't know what the hell, because they switch between TSN, SN, and I don't know what the hell, there's SN West, SN East. But if it's that national game where everybody's watching, don't take puck lines on the favorites to begin with. I believe throughout the course of that game, an opportunity will present itself if you truly do want to take that puck line, because the mail-ins occur, and the highest likelihood of a mail-in by good teams is against these really poor ones. And I don't think that Carolina one qualifies. This is not some minus 350 favorite. They were a simple minus 190. So that doesn't count, but I'm sure we will see some as these weeks move forward. Then second, don't fret double empty netters. Don't fret taking unders because you're scared of double empty netters. The opportunity will always present itself to hedge it with a minus 2.5 puck line. If it's 3-2 and you're scared of 2 empty netters, then simply take that favorite for a small price, minus 2.5. Go ahead. You want to hit those 2 empty netters? I'm getting paid out regardless. And then lastly, the 100% boost on DraftKings. If you're going to do it, simply choose 2 to 3 ruckus games, and you can make a 10-leg parlay a 3-leg parlay by choosing the appropriate ruckus game. Look, it's not 100% easy, but in my opinion, that correlation makes it significantly easier. And now we go on to the reason some of you have come here. Probably all of you, almost all of you, maybe none of you. And that is the Saturday slate. And one thing that I did notice as I took a first glance before we started recording, what did we talk about these last couple of weeks? And I found it fascinating. The West Coast, the Pacific time zone teams, I want to know their records. I want to know their first period totals if they're playing at 12, 12:30, 1 o'clock. These LA Kings players, it's 9:30 a.m. in their head, 9:30 a.m. And you could say they've been on the East Coast. We said the same thing about Vancouver last week. You ever been on a business trip? What do you try to do? You try to go to bed early and stuff because when you go back home, you don't want to have to do the same exact thing where you're staying up till 4 in the morning. So my guess is they're still closer to Pacific time zone than not. And if you're it's not even 1 o'clock, it's 12:30. So the first thing, naturally, I shouldn't even have to tell you guys, to bump it up under 6.5. The same exact thing we did with the Kraken game. But then the second thing that I have to take an extra look at, I want to know the first period totals of these teams that have to play at 9:30 a.m. I know Vancouver scored 0 last week. I know Vancouver had a max of 1 in the whole game, I believe, the last time they were out there and played Buffalo. I know there was a Boston game. I forgot, maybe it was against Seattle on a Saturday. No, it wasn't against Seattle. Anyway, I'm going to flirt with the LA Kings or the first period under total. But then again, you have to hope the Bruins don't pop in a couple. But I'm thinking about the first period under and the Kings first period team total, which you know what it is, but maybe we could see if they're held to a donut. I mean, at least we got the Kings or the Bruins playing defense and their goaltending, and the Kings have scored a grand total of 2 goals in their last 2 games, 0 goals in their previous 2 first periods. So that's a good start if you ask me, because normally I hate day games. I hate day games because, as you saw last week, teams like it's another little hint that you can get a potential mail-in. My opinion, if you're looking at when are the mail-ins coming? When is a team's mail-in potentially coming? There are 2 instances. Number 1, you're a team that's in the bottom of the standings playing a team that's in that. So you're the Oilers, you're playing the Ducks. Hard to get it up for the solid 4. And then secondly, when you haven't been up long enough. Okay, you haven't had your coffee, you haven't had your second coffee, and you're not in nighttime mood, and you come out like the Islanders last weekend, or a couple of these other teams. With the first period, we're dead in almost all those games. It's just a different vibe. I swear to you, I'll show you text messages from years ago. I always said that a playoff team has an advantage. The road team has an advantage by getting a day game in the other team's building. And that was the birth of my ruckus factor. I said to my brother's friend, I go, the Islanders were playing Pittsburgh on the road. And by the way, Islanders ended up winning that game. I was like, there's no ruckus. It's people with their families and people are being kind. Nobody's going nuts in between the whistles. You compare that to a Friday night. You got drunk college kids. You got people been tailgating after work. They went to happy hour. They're going to the game. It's way more of an intimidating environment. So I remember my brother's friend was just saying, well, I don't get it. I'm like, there's no ruckus. It's kids and kindness and yay, nice clap after the first period. Friday night games are madness. And I think that it has a trickle-down effect. So day games and when really good teams are playing bottom dwellers, I always believe those are the two instances where you're likely to see a mail-in at the highest percentage. The highest percent chance of a mail-in comes in those two separate scenarios. So Ottawa, Chicago, my first thought here is if you're going to leave the total at 6, anything with Ottawa, I'll take the over. They can clear it on their own, or if they suck, as you saw against Anaheim, and are conceding chances, they'll let in 4 or 5 or something like that. So my thought here is over, and then like an over 2.5 or whatever the Chicago team total is. Both teams to score 2+. Definitely like that here, despite the fact that this is probably a game that people wouldn't think that was a good option. Only thing that I do hate, day game. No ruckus factor. A lot of families. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying for ruckus. Families aren't ruckus. Families are stable. Oh, how you doing? Oh, you want some ice cream? It's not ruckus. Oilers Stars. Wow. I think it's fair to say I am not going to continue my under 2.5 goal. I mean, I should. Maybe I'll do it on my own, but I won't suggest it to you guys to take the Oilers to be held under 2.5 goals. This should be a great game. Dallas couldn't be playing any better. They've held every team to 2 or fewer, 4-0 since the All-Star break. Edmonton, quite the opposite. We've seen the wheels of that juggernaut. Look what a little All-Star break can do to you. They barely squeezed by Anaheim after losing to Vegas. They came out of the break, lost to Vegas, barely beat Anaheim, got crushed by the Kings, went home, destroyed Detroit, thought we were back, and then they went on the road, lost to St. Louis. This is going to be a tough game because like I said, Dallas wants home ice as long as they can get it through the playoffs. I'm obviously not making it. 2 teams this good, I'm not making a pick, but I would lean Dallas. We keep going to the next one. Yep, it's an error. They're saying, don't bet on that game. Don't bet on it. Then we got Wings, Flames. This one could go either way. Classic Flames, right? Go like 4-1 on the road. But there was no Markstrom. Markstrom status will dictate a lot. If there's no Markstrom, both teams to score 2+ looks pretty good to me. You can take some Red Wings point props. Yeah, but I wouldn't bet against Calgary. They're a very weird team, right? They just got crushed by the Sharks. Is this the wheels going to fall? The wheels are falling off soon. All those defensive pieces are about to be traded. I don't know. I'm staying away from that. Also, 4 o'clock potential weirdness. I just want to get tonight. Okay, I know what you're thinking. Florida Panthers, I told you they're vicious. They're keeping everyone under 2. I mean, they kept Pittsburgh under 2.5. They shut out Buffalo, who's kind of a ruckus team. 5 o'clock, I do not like. However, I also do not like just taking Florida in this game. Tampa's got a little weird thing in Florida's head. They've crushed them in the playoffs. Vasilevsky's gotten in that team's head before. Tampa plays fantastic on their own home ice. Just beat Colorado. This should make for a great game. That's what I think. This should make for a great game. It's interesting when they got that Tampa home total at 6. Wow. Great game. Look forward to that one. All right, let's keep going. Sabres, Wild. First thought, both teams to score 2. You can do 2 points here, 2 points there. This one might have that. Going. Predators, Blues. Predators kind of got ripped by their coach for not being engaged, but after an extremely embarrassing performance like that, I will take the over on Nashville's team total. Next up, we got Capitals, Canadiens. The Capitals have just been getting worked, crushed. Now, they did beat the Bruins. I think the Capitals are going to win this one. And look for Pacioretty to some of his point props. He always feels a little special up there in Montreal. And after that, we got the night games here. Anaheim, Toronto. This is kind of what I said. Now, it's not like an isolation game on a Friday night where it's the only one. But if you want to take Toronto by the puck line, just don't do it right away. Don't do it right away. Maybe the opportunity will present itself, because Anaheim just got shut out by the Canadiens and then just destroyed Ottawa. So you don't know what you're getting from them at the moment. There may be some player prop opportunities for the Ducks in there. There might be, because you also get to a weird part of the season where those bad teams, where they're truly out of it, they actually play freely because there's no pressure on them. They truly, when you're out of the race, you aren't gripping the stick tightly anymore. All right, well, we're out of it. Now let me try some things. Those trying some things got teams like the Pittsburgh Penguins eliminated from the playoffs by the Chicago Blackhawks last year. So, that freedom allows teams to really upset some favorites coming down the stretch. We will try to avoid. It's really Minesweeper trying to avoid them, and you've seen this these last couple nights. But let's keep going after that Anaheim-Toronto game. Flyers-Devils, this is the outdoor game. You guys never need to see a video from me. You never need to hear a pick. Now, I know this is always a little scary to say when it comes to New Jersey, and this isn't preferable for me, but any outdoor game, I'm taking the under 6.5. The ice conditions screw players. So as the second half of that game goes on, you're less likely to see that perfect pass. You're more likely to see a puck just freeze up on a puddle or something like that and stop. The weather helps you out if you bet the under. It's your friend. It's like you have angels in the outfield. You have outside of the goalie, a sixth skater on the ice helping you play defense, and that's the weather, the outdoor environment. So I will always go under 6.5. The only thing that sucks, and even though these Devils have just been involved in a couple of massive unders in a row, the under 6.5 is that's what's looking at me there, despite the Devils' year-long ability to make anything an over. Jets, Canucks. I will say this after watching these Canucks. They're vulnerable. I'm telling you, they're vulnerable. They give other teams chances. Sometimes Demko kind of bails them out. I know they're sitting in first. To me, this is just like the Devils last year. This is just like the Panthers the year before that. I watch how they play. They don't have true playoff style buried into them, and that's going to cost them come playoffs. The Jets just play playoff style every single night, try to win crusty unders. Pretty telling that the over-under on this is 5.5. Jesus Christ. But the Jets aren't as likely to have these 2-1 games on the road as they are at home. I'm leaning Jets in an upset there. It's just my philosophy. Good defense versus good offense. I'll always take the good defense. And those are the two front runners for the Vezina, by the way. And then you got the Canes Knights going right back on the ice. I saw on a different sports book that was listed at 6.5. I would take the under 6.5 here. You guys know these two styles. You know Aiden Hill. I'm assuming that Carolina is going to play Kochetkov in this game. I also think it depends on what you get out of Carolina tonight. But an exhausted Carolina, a back-to-back Carolina, that's good for an under, because that's just simple hockey. You're looking for the opposite of back and forth. These two teams, I think, are likely to engage in the opposite of back and forth, which is what we're looking at right now, a game, unintentional potential ruckus. Two teams completely out of it, nothing to play for. Calgary Sharks, 8-9 or whatever this score is. This is hidden ruckus. Yes, the girl who showed up at school and you're thinking, oh my God, I didn't know that. Holy, is this serious? Well, I think this might be. I think this might be hidden ruckus presented in the form of the Blue Jackets versus the Sharks. I'll go over there, and I am going to take some weird point. Think about if you're correct on line mates nailing 2 points. Think about if you get Zetterlund and Granlund to snag 2 points each on a same gamer. Do you know what the payout is on that? 2 points for Zetterlund, 2 points for Granlund, or even on the Blue Jackets, if you do two line mates for 2 points each, or if you do one guy, if you do Granlund for 2 points, Goudreau for 2 points, massive opportunity. We just need the roulette ball to fall in one of the ruckus. Oh my God, you see that? Oh, he landed on ruckus. Hopefully that's what happens in that game. That could be that game has the ability to be a great Saturday salvager if things don't go your way. You know how you put in panic bets after you lost? And I know you've all done it. The panic bet, you lost early, and you just start clicking things that if you had time, you wouldn't have done. That game has the potential to salvage some bad Saturdays. So leave a couple shekels off to the side. Maybe call it a sniff. Yeah, a little last-second sniff here on Pickin Corners. But that ends today's episode. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Hopefully you guys learned a thing or tree. I'll be back with you on Monday for the standard best bets. If you guys want the actual assortment of picks that I concoct, I post them on the Patreon. It's always there down in the link in the description of this video. It's patreon.com/Andy Francess. We also have the Ruckus chat thread where these people are betting on corner kicks in soccer games. I don't know what the hell's going on, but they're always communicating, talking about a bunch of crazy stuff. It's pretty entertaining sometimes. Other times it's, cutthroat. It's everything you'd expect in an NHL/sports betting chat room. But you don't even have to engage in that. I post the picks on the Patreon. I update them as new information came in. Like, you know what I put out there? Here's a little bonus sniff for tonight. I put 2 points for Svechnikov and 1 point for Teuvo Teravainen being an assist. So an assist for Teravainen and 2 points for Svechnikov. Now, what's my reasoning? What's my logic there? Well, if the top line does have a night like I'm hoping they do, then Teravainen is that third member. I'm hoping just on one goal that he tabs up some sort of free assist. He's a pretty good passer. And then the other Svechnikov point can come on the power play because Teravainen is not on that top out. So I'm hoping one assist comes at like 5-on-5, and then another point for Svechnikov will come on the power play or even at even strength or something like that. That's like plus 800. So an assist for Teravainen, 2 points for Svechnikov. I don't know how overly likely it is because this game, the last one was 3-1 final, but just as a little calculated sniff. So hopefully I see you guys on the Patreon. If not, I will see you Monday for best bets. All right, take it easy, and I will talk to you then.
Thanks a lot.